So what we're driving today is, fairly obviously, Ford Escort XR3i. It's a rare car these days, rarer than you might think. So why is it so rare? Well, a lot of them were crashed, a lot of them were stolen and crashed, a lot of them were modified and then stolen and then crashed. They weren't as strongly made as the Golf, and somehow they haven't sort of encouraged the enthusiast support quite like the Golf either. I haven't driven an XR3i for I think about 20 years. I'm looking forward to seeing whether it lives up to my memories. If you compare it to something like a Golf GTI, it does feel cheaper inside, but it's not any less pleasant. Things like this glove box lid over here aren't so good, and this isn't quite the black, soft feel plastic that you got with the Golf. But on the other hand, does that really matter? You've got a nice 3-spoke steering wheel, you've got nice seats, and really, it's more pleasant than the Golf in many ways because it's not quite so dark and oppressive. There's one thing people used to moan about the German cars back in the 80s, that everything was black and you felt like you were peering out of a letterbox. But this is quite a nice, airy sort of place to be, really. So to create the XR3i, Ford added Bosch's Cagetronic injection to what had been the XR3 with its Weber carburettor. And the Cagetronics is an analogue system, so it's actually quite responsive in terms of throttle response compared to the early electronic systems. And really, people complained about the CVH engine being rough and coarse. It's really not that bad. The Golf 4-cylinder engine has no paragon of refinement. It's hardly a Honda VTEC after all. This feels entirely right for the type of car that this is, and certainly for the market it was pitched at. And this car was some £300 cheaper than the Golf back in the day anyway. And for that, of course, you've got a smaller engine, 105 horsepower. The Golf had some 10 horsepower more. But this is a little bit lighter, and really, it gets along the road quite well, and Ford knew exactly what they were doing. It's just as fast as it needs to be, and if you wanted more power, you got the RS Turbo. Or, of course, the GTI 16 valve, which was always a bit disappointing, really, despite what the dubbers tell you. The XR3i just feels entirely right, a nice, well-balanced sort of package. It's still good for nearly 120 miles an hour, and with the 5-speed box, it's nice on the motorway. And really, all the criticism you might have heard, it's just received wisdom, and actually, even by the standards of today, it does hold up pretty well. Ford struck a nice compromise with the ride quality of the XR3i, really. On a fast country road like this, with lots of undulations, it actually rides more smoothly than probably the Golf does. It was always a little bit too firm for British tastes. So what's it like living with an XR3i? Well, back in the day, they were obviously the supremely practical hot hatch. But today it's not quite so easy. Yes, you've got space for 4, it's a reasonably modern, safe car, it's got a decent boot, it's quite good on fuel. The trouble is, you just can't get parts. Mechanical parts are fine. By and large, you can get most of the things you'll need to keep you running, but trim bits you really struggle for. Seat trims, forget it, you'll have to have them retrimmed, and dashboards for certain, it's all a question of buying used parts or finding good new old stock. This particular car's got a Mark IV screen rubber in it because the guys just couldn't find a Mark III one. Over the years, I've driven countless Golf GTIs and even more Escort XR3is. I first started working in publishing on a VW magazine, then I spent several years as editor of Fast Forward magazine, and I never thought I'd be back in the driving seat of a really mint XR3i like this, and do you know what? It stood the test of time. So if you want something different, that's not a Golf, and is that little bit more left field, and is much rarer, seek out an XR3i and you won't actually be disappointed. If our film's got you misty-eyed for the days of the 80s hot hatches, then you can actually own this very car. The Escort's being given away during 2020 by Lancaster Insurance. All you have to do to win it is visit www.lancasterinsurance.co.uk and then follow the instructions you find there. Or you can see the car in the flesh at many of the classic car shows this summer, so you can enter in person.